Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
If you are a rural Alaskan resident with an interest in preserving subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing for future generations, and maintaining an open forum for public expressions, opinions, and concerns regarding subsistence, consider applying for one of the Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Councils by Friday, January 29, 2016. More info at 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is December 23rd, 2015, which means it's the day before Christmas Eve, and I know and all the Weather Service knows that the biggest question on your mind is whether you will or will not get snow for Christmas or Christmas Eve. Well, in just a few moments, we'll be on to the statewide forecast to answer some of those questions and give you some clues. When we're not on air, you can always find us at www.arh.noaa.gov, or as always, call our 1-800 information line at 1-800-472-0391, and we have our social page that has our Facebook and Twitter on our national pages, and also look us up on YouTube by going to AKwx. Now on to the topics of the day. First, taking a look at, technical error just for a moment. Okay, we have some winter weather occurring across the western areas of the state, so look for blizzard conditions setting in overnight for the Bering Strait and along the Bering Strait coast here and across the Kuskokwim Delta. Looking for visibilities there reducing to 1/4 mile or less at times, with winds between 30 and 40 miles per hour, highest gusts up to 60 miles per hour. We also have a winter storm warning out for the Yukon Delta, and they will be seeing reduced visibilities down to 1 mile or less at times, and look for snow amounts ranging between 2 and 4 inches as we head through your day on Thursday. Extended period of time for the winter storm warning, and the blizzard to the north will continue through your Saturday, so stay updated on your forecast if you're in that area of concern. Now looking to the north across the northwestern coast, we have wind chill advisories out along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. There they're going to be seeing gusty winds out of the west as we head into the nighttime hours, with temperatures already between 20 and 30 degrees below and gusty winds. They're expecting temperatures, negative temperatures between 50 and 60 degrees below zero. Now, for the week, the end of the week, look for an active weather pattern as we head into the weekend. We're going to see that blowing snow across the Bering, like I said, a long duration into Saturday. And then we'll see increasing chances for precipitation. Let me get out of your way so you can read this. For the area through Friday, mainly for the south and the western coast, but we'll even see a possible snow event expected for the southeast as we head Friday into Saturday. So some interesting weather, and this is all driven by this low pressure system that's centered just to the north of Kiska this afternoon. Now this system is spinning and bringing this moisture all the way up to the northern areas of the Bering this afternoon. They were seeing snow at the Pribilofs, reducing visibilities down to 1 to 3 miles at times. And then we have moisture down across the Alaska and the Alaska Peninsula out through the eastern Aleutians. This area here is warm enough to see mostly rain conditions. Now, looking across the southeastern areas, a weak trough axis with this low pressure system near the Dixon entrance brought some snow in overnight, and some lighter snow shower activity just trailing in on the backside of this low pressure system that's spinning down and moving off to the east. Mainly across the interior areas, some light snow showers have occurred all the way up to the northern coast, but some clearing conditions have occurred across much of the Gulf of Alaska, and even this evening across areas of South Central. Mainly just a break between the system out here to the west and the system there to the southeast. Now, looking at your map from earlier today, in just a moment, you'll see where the low pressure system is moving up from the eastern Aleutians, right here, bringing a weather front stretching from the Kuskokwim Delta back just to the north of the Pribilofs and wrapping all the way around back to Shemya. So a very strong low, surface low at 968 millibars, bringing some warmer rain processes just ahead of the center of the low pressure system. Now, just to the northwest, we have a ridge embarking onto the northwestern areas, fairly strong ridge, and in between the systems, just seeing some shower activity with increased offshore flow behind this low pressure system that's exiting off to the southeast. So mainly shower activity confined to the southeast and just across the eastern areas of the Gulf, but mainly dry conditions across South Central, much of the southwest areas, and the western Gulf, including Kodiak. Now, tonight, things are going to be changing up across the eastern areas of the Bering with some very gusty conditions setting up out of the south and southeast. Blowing snow conditions will be easterly across the Kuskokwim Delta back through the northern Bering Sea. So look for winds to be on the increase there. Also, we have weak low pressure that's exiting off to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. That's just keeping the gradient just tight enough to produce some westerly flow along the north and northwestern areas with some light snow shower activity and continuing across the interior. Weak troughing is going to keep some shower activity where it clears off across the southeast tonight. Expect some fog to develop. We'll also see fog to redevelop across the Cook Inlet and just some patchy fog across areas of South Central. The main focus is going to be on this low pressure system out to the west, and that's going to be deepening to 963 millibars overnight. As we head into your Thursday, it'll stay about the same pressure and it will move a little bit further north, bringing those gusty conditions a little bit further north to the St. Lawrence Island and just the south end of the Seward Peninsula. Look for mostly rain conditions across the Pribilofs by your Thursday time frame, and another low pressure system deepening very quickly from the North Pacific and moving into the eastern Aleutians. So here's your Christmas Eve. Basically, we're going to see mostly dry conditions across the northern areas of the state and drier conditions across the southeast and south central. So not expecting any snow across those areas tonight. Best chance to see snow and blowing snow is going to be along that west coast, with some isolated snow shower activity possible across the southern areas of the Kenai. As we head into Friday, now this low pressure system is a very tricky low. It's going to bottom out around 950 millibars, so very tight, gusty wind conditions here for the Alaska Peninsula. Gusty winds continuing across the Bering into Friday. Here's the snow. The snow is going to be mainly across the northern Bering. However, as this low begins to move to the east later on Friday, that's going to be the toughest question. We'll see the warmer air mass along the southwest coast here, so likely maybe see some rain across Kodiak and then pushing east across the Gulf. How far does this snow get up to South Central? Well, it's not likely to go very far north because this low is progged to go eastward, so to the southeast. By the end of your day on Friday, possibly seeing that snow starting across the southeast and up towards the Panhandle. We'll see some snow along the Prince William Sound areas and some along the eastern areas of the peninsula. However, like I said, we're not going to see very much snow across the interior areas and across the north, as the low pressure system is going to stay well to the south, with some very strong gusty winds out of the northwest between 40 to 60 miles per hour on the backside of this low pressure. Snow changing over to rain as you head towards the Aleutians, a little bit warmer air mass around this low pressure system, bringing up the warm Pacific air. Now, looking at your temperatures earlier today, it kind of moderated across the Gulf waters in the mid to upper teens. And then across Kodiak Island, they saw temperatures just above freezing, with the warm temperatures also across the southeast in the mid-30s mainly. Across the interior areas, temperatures floating around zero and just below. Across the coast to the North Brooks Range saw temperatures, negative temperatures, 20 to 35 below there at AKwx, and then across the Seward Peninsula, slightly warmer temperatures near zero, transitioning across the southwest back into the lower teens. Alaska Peninsula and the Bering were floating right in the mid-30s to near 30 degrees, the warmest temperatures at Dutch Harbor today at 48 degrees. Now on the backside of this low pressure system, still near freezing or just above towards the western Aleutians. Looking at your temperatures for tonight, temperatures are going to be between 20 to 30 degrees below zero from the Brooks Range and north. Interior areas will also see temperatures as cold. Now across the Gulf Coast, we'll see temperatures in the single digits to near 20 degrees, warmest across the southeast there with 25 to 30 degrees. Across much of the Bering, temperatures are going to be near 30 or just above, with the warmer temperatures there around Alaska Peninsula approaching near 40 degrees, and then on the backside of the low pressure staying near freezing. As we head into your day tomorrow, not a whole lot of change for temperatures across the north and the interior, temperatures getting into the minus 10 to minus 20 degree range, but notably warmer temperatures across the southwest approaching freezing, and warmer temperatures across the central Bering in the lower 40s. Southeast will see near freezing temperatures, mid-30s across the western areas of the Bering. Now as we look at your, trying to advance this and it's not moving forward. Just give me one moment. Here we go. Here's your flying conditions for tomorrow. The IFR conditions all across the eastern areas of the Bering, extending around the low pressure there to the west. Some concerns for Apache fog. MVFR conditions across interior areas of the state should improve during the afternoon, and staying MVFR across the north and northwest coast. IFR conditions will be going as we head in towards the Seward Peninsula later in the day, so expect conditions to diminish there. Southeast areas will also possibly see fog in the morning, so MVFR for the southeast improving later in the day. Now looking at your pass conditions tomorrow, Anatuvik Pass will mainly be VFR, Adigan will be VFR, and then Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will both be MVFR. Rainy Pass will go VFR to MVFR later in the day. Windy Pass will MVFR, clearing to VFR. And then Isabel, MVFR, clearing to VFR. And we also will see Mentasta, clear day tomorrow. And then for Tanita Pass, MVFR morning conditions, clearing to VFR. Portage should stay VFR all day. And lastly, we should see Chilkoot and White Pass MVFR conditions. Now, here's the surface freezing level right across the northern areas of the Gulf and back to the north of Pribilof Islands and back down towards Shemya, looking at the 2,000 to 6,000 foot level from the southern areas of the Bering, climbing as you head to the south of the Alaska Peninsula. Looking at your icing tomorrow, widespread conditions across the Bering with more moderate conditions across the eastern areas of the Bering, and watch out for below 8,000 foot conditions just in the early hours for the southeast tomorrow, and below 8,000 to 12,000 across the Bering and just south of the Alaska Peninsula. Now, looking at your jet stream, here's the amplified pattern that's kind of blocking this low pressure to stay out here in the Bering, and with the center of the jet stream just south of the central Aleutians. Looking at your 9,000 foot winds, the low pressure system is going to be sprawling across the Bering with the fastest wind speeds across the Alaska Peninsula. Easterly flow across much of the state between 20 and 25 knots, and out of the northwest for the southeast between 30 and 35. Very similar conditions at the surface with accelerations on the backside of this low pressure as well, out of the northwest, and your turbulence are going to be widespread across the Bering and much of the Gulf of Alaska. In just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
Coming up on Destination Tomorrow, we take a look at NASA's Aviation Safety Program. We'll look back at some highlights of the program and find out what the future holds for aviation. All this and more next on Destination Tomorrow.
Judy, tell me a little bit more about the icing protection system. Do all planes have it?
There's what we call an anti-ice system where you don't allow the ice to grow at all. That's if you got a very hot leading edge. You see that in jets. Then there's a de-icing system which has pneumatic boots, that the boots will wrap around that leading edge, they'll inflate and pop the ice off. So you let the ice grow and then you got to get it off. The pneumatic boots are typically what you see with turboprop aircraft.
Does icing affect planes in, say, a warm climate?
Icing occurs everywhere. You've got to be aware of it. I've got a pilot friend who told me the worst icing he encountered was flying from Florida to the Caribbean in July at 16,000 feet. The worst icing he ever saw. But icing really can occur anywhere and any time. One of the things we do here at NASA is to have better designs. So maybe a system that would automatically turn on the ice protection system if a sensor goes up. The short-term solution is to train the pilots and educate them about how to detect icing, how to be aware of it, train them how to get out of the icing environment if and when they need to. Ideally, icing is a non-issue in the future. We're working to get there.
For many of us, fear is the biggest problem when it comes to flying. We thought it may be helpful to present you with some statistics that may or may not be helpful to those of you who are fearful flyers.
First, your chances of being involved in an aircraft accident are approximately 1 in 11 million, while your chances of being killed in an automobile accident are about 1 in 5,000, proving that the most dangerous part of your flight is the drive to the airport.
One last fact. Statistically, you have more of a chance of dying from the food served on board the flight than being involved in an aircraft accident.
Most people who have flown in an airplane have experienced turbulence. NASA is working on new warning systems to help pilots avoid dangerous turbulence. Paula Vaden has more.
If you've ever flown in an airplane, you are probably familiar with turbulence. Even for the most experienced flyers, the sudden, sometimes violent, irregular air motion can be an unsettling experience. In most cases, turbulence is merely an inconvenience that passengers and flight crews must endure. But in cases of severe turbulence, the violent shaking can not only cause serious injury to passengers and crew, it can also be fatal. In an effort to help aircraft avoid turbulence, researchers at NASA are testing new onboard aircraft systems. The Airborne Research Integrated Experiment System, or ARES, uses experimental systems that detect turbulence minutes before an aircraft encounters it. This new system may allow pilots to avoid severe turbulence, making flying safer. I spoke with Neil O'Connor in the Crew Systems Branch at NASA Langley Research Center to find out more.
You can think of turbulence as any phenomenon in the atmosphere that's going to upset the airplane. Changes in wind that can cause the airplane to be disrupted from its normal flight. You can also get turbulence whenever you have wind rushing over the top of a mountain. The leeward side of a mountain can be very turbulent. You can also get turbulence wherever the jet stream is active. There's a high wind speed in the region of the jet stream, but slower right nearby. Thunderstorms can cause turbulence. Everyone knows right nearby the storm, but sometimes even 50 or 100 miles away in the clear air, you can get turbulence from a thunderstorm.
So Neil, how are pilots avoiding severe turbulence now?
For the most part, pilots have several simple options. They listen to the radio to hear if other pilots have already encountered turbulence in that area. So that means somebody's already been hit. They can also look at their onboard radar and try to, based on their experience, can extrapolate what they think might be, but it's not really foolproof. And they can also get a general forecast from the government sources or from their own airline.
There we got some turbulence now. We're about 3 miles short.
Though seldom damaging to modern aircraft, turbulence is the leading cause of in-flight injuries among passengers and flight crews. On average, 58 injuries aboard aircraft are reported each year. 98% of these injuries occur when unsuspecting passengers or crew are unbuckled or out of their seats when an aircraft encounters turbulence. Currently, there are no instruments on board aircraft to detect turbulence before a plane encounters it. NASA researchers hope to change this by incorporating new turbulence radar systems within existing onboard weather radars. With this new radar system in place, researchers hope to provide pilots with enough warning to either avoid the turbulent area or at least give passengers and flight attendants enough time to return to their seats and buckle up.
The radar system itself will just be a software upgrade to the existing wind shear radar that's already on board the airplanes. The beauty of that, of course, is that since it's just an upgrade to an already certified piece of hardware, it should be relatively inexpensive because you're just incrementally changing what's out there already.
So Neil, tell me how exactly this new system's going to work.
The way it'll work for the pilot is that he'll flip a switch that's labeled turbulence, and then he'll have the new software running. It'll be running mostly at cruise altitudes where the pilots typically allow people to move around the cabin. It's not a problem when you're climbing or descending because everyone's already strapped in. So if you have a turbulence encounter there, it's not a big issue because everyone's already buckled in. But we want to help make a difference at altitude when you don't always know there's going to be turbulence out there. And this new product will be able to increase the capability of the system and increase the pilot's confidence in the accuracy of the system, leading to a better, safer environment.
Besides radar, is there any other kind of research with turbulence?
Doing other research, both onboard and otherwise. The onboard system is called the in situ turbulence warning system, and that's a system that uses accelerometers on the airplane to measure what the airplane feels at a given moment. That'll be transmitted automatically to all other airplanes in the general area, along with the location. And a receiving airplane will take that data and adapt it to its own size and class of airplane, and then assess whether or not it's a threat to that airplane. And if it's a threat, then it'll tell the pilot. Another way of enhancing what we have now is improving our forecast capability. And that gets into modeling of the weather and other phenomena of the atmosphere, better understand what the potential is for turbulence.
So Neil, what are your hopes for this project?
Well, the ultimate goal, of course, is to increase the safety and reduce injuries caused by turbulence on the airplane. Right now, it's very easy to prevent injuries when you know you're going to have turbulence. The pilot says, hey, we got to buckle up for a few minutes. Everyone does it, no one gets hurt. But you don't always know the turbulence is coming. So sometimes if you don't know, people are walking around and the plane gets a lurch, someone's going to get hurt. And that happens now. So we know we can make a difference by improving the product.
That's it for this edition of NASA's Destination Tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steele McGonigal.
And I'm Kara O'Brien. For all of us at NASA, we'll see you next time.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Now on to your marine forecast. Let's take a look at the sea ice edge here. It's along the Nunivak Island and hugging the coast across the Bristol Bay area. We also still have the ice continuing to grow somewhat across the Cook Inlet. Now the main growth is going to be just north of Nunivak Island across the northern Bering Sea with a north to northeasterly flow. Expect the ice to be growing to the southwest location. So looking at your southeastern forecast for your Thursday, we're going to see a northerly flow across most of the area with the strongest flow across the inner channels, 35 knots there to the north gales. And then we'll see seas across the inner channels between 4 to 7 feet. Across the outer waters, expect seas to be highest across or near the Dixon entrance between 9 to 15 feet for Thursday. Now as we head into your day on Friday, look for a northerly flow across much of the inner channels with a higher gusts around 30 knots. Gales as you head towards the southwest at 35 knots across the outer waters, mainly small craft. When you get to the north, easterly flow at 35 knots, gale criteria there. And 6 to 7 foot seas across the inner channels. Outer waters will be around 9 to 10 feet. For your south central forecast, look for a northerly flow to west across most of the area until you get towards Kodiak Island. Just south of there, they'll see a southerly flow, mainly between 15 to 25 knots for your Thursday forecast, with seas across the Prince William Sound and the northern areas of the inlet where there's no ice. We'll see 2 to 3 foot seas, and then across the western Gulf between 8 to 10 feet, as well as the Shelikof Strait down towards 3 feet. Now looking at your Friday forecast, mainly an easterly flow turning north as you head up towards the inlet. Stronger winds on your Friday for your forecast. Christmas is going to be very gusty around Kodiak Island with the southeasterly flow once again for Kodiak. Looking at seas across the Prince William Sound and the northern inlet around 9 feet. The western Gulf locations will be between 20 to 24 feet, Shelikof Strait, and around the Barren Islands between 10 to 15 feet, and the southern inlet around 11 feet. Looking at your Thursday forecast around the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay will be very strong flow, except across the Bristol Bay around 25 knots, all out of the south direction. And then we'll see gales for the Alaska Peninsula on the north and south side. Seas would be between 7 to 13 feet on the Bering side, and then 14 to 20 feet across the Pacific side. Stronger winds here on Friday, storm force criteria for much of the area, all out of the south to east direction, with seas between 12 feet on the Bering side to 25 to 27 feet on the Pacific side. Looking at your Aleutians, very strong winds out towards the west, storm force out of the west and northwest, with seas across the area between 25 to 26 feet. And then across the eastern and central, heading towards the central Aleutians, we'll see more of a southerly flow, 35 to 40 knots, gales out there between 15 feet on the Bering side and 20 to 25 feet on the Pacific side. As we head into your day on Friday, strong winds across most of the area, around 50 to 55 knots, a little bit lighter winds towards the Unalaska area. Seas will be highest around the central and eastern Aleutians between 25 to 35 feet, elsewhere between 15 to 25 feet. Across the west coast on your Thursday, winds will be out of your east to southeast, all gales until you get towards the south end of Nunivak Island. Out of the east to southeast direction, seas on that day will be between 10 to 25 feet. And then for your Friday forecast, strong winds once again, mostly gales across the area, strong winds towards Nunivak Island and south, all out of the east to northeast direction, except along the central Pribilofs between 12 and 15 foot for your seas. Now look for the gusty winds around the Shelikof Strait, the Bering Strait area between 10 to 15 knots, and then westerly flow across the remainder of the area. And then on your Friday, stronger flow just yet, especially towards the Chukchi Sea and south. Now, recapping your forecast, we're going to see some very gusty winds as we head into the end of the week. Snow mostly across the southeastern areas, with drier across the interior. Hope to see you tomorrow. I'm Kimberley Hoeppner.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
If subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing are important to you, please consider applying for one of the open seats on your Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council. These seats will be filled by rural Alaskans who are knowledgeable about fish and wildlife subsistence in their region. Apply by Friday, January 29th, 2016. Information at 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov.